Step number 7 is about adding predecessors. A predecessor is something that occurs before something else. So take for example here, we have design. What occurs before design? Well, notice to proceed would occur. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and insert a column called the predecessor column and insert another column called the successor column. What would also be helpful and what I like to use is the split screen. So if you go to View, Other Views, More Views, and you go to the Task Entry screen and you hit Apply, it has this bottom screen available for you. This is kind of like the detail of the detailed dialog box. We can change it to where we're going to look at predecessors and successors only rather than looking at resources and predecessors. So by doing that, I think it's a little easier to see it. So if design has a predecessor of notice to proceed, we'd want to assign it to 5 because 5 is the ID here for the activity. So we'll go ahead and do that. And so when you go back and you look at it, you'll see the predecessor is actually in the detailed box down here. So you want to go to every individual activity and look to see, what is the predecessor of this or what is the predecessor of that. If we go back over to the other project, the new warehouse project that we have, we do the same thing. We open the view, more views, the task entry view. We're able to see the predecessors and successors. So we're going to go through and assign every activity at least one predecessor. By only assigning one, that'll allow you to prevent some redundancies from actually occurring. So there's only 2 activities that are not supposed to have there's only 2 activities that don't have to have either predecessor or successor. Notice to proceed, because it's the first activity, it has no predecessor whatsoever. So you can see in the box down there, none whatsoever. And if you go down to the very, very end of the project, post-construction closeout also does not have a successor. So we're going to start at one place, we're going to end at one place, and the first activity and the last activity. First activity doesn't have a predecessor, last activity does not have a successor. So we notice that we have everything lined up via natural predecessor, meaning naturally we know that, say we go down to construction, naturally we know that we're going to have layout precede excavation or prep of column footings. We know that's inherent in the nature of that work. However, there are some tasks that have unnatural logic, like SMIT 50% plans. Well, that may the predecessor for that may not be as apparent. In this case, we assigned it a notice to proceed. So you have both natural and unnatural predecessors. We want to be careful with unnatural predecessors because it can put unforeseen constraints on it that can affect your schedule when you do schedule updates. So be conscious of what you list as a successor and a predecessor. Now the notice to proceed, after you put in all the predecessors, it's going to be driven off of the start date from our project information. So the start date is 7/5, right? So if it doesn't have a predecessor, it's going to start on that start date. Now, so there's really nothing to do there. But on the last activity, that post-construction closeout, we need to make sure that has a constraint. So we're going to double click and we're going to go to the Advanced tab and we're going to establish a constraint type. We want it to finish no later than 1/2/2, right? So 2/2/18, we want to make sure it doesn't finish no later than 2/2/18. Okay, it's going to ask you, do you want to have a constraint? Do you want to leave a constraint there? And you say yes. And why do we do that? We do that because that helps our float number. And if we go back here and we look at our total float, or as it says in the software, total slack, by establishing that date, it identifies what the float number would be. So if we were to change that date to be, you know, sooner, like 2/13, it's going to give us negative float numbers, or it should have given us negative float numbers, but it's going to give us it should be finished no later than so you see the negative numbers there. So by putting a constraint on the very last activity, you allow the float numbers to be able to help you to focus in on the topics or the activities that are important. So so that pretty much covers predecessors. We want to go through and assign all the predecessors for every activity, making sure that every activity at least has one predecessor. Mostly using finish to start relationships. That's what FS stands for right there. If you don't put anything next to the number, it just automatically assumes it's a finish to start. I like using the box down here because the box at the bottom, you know, you're able to sort and look through the task names. Remember I talked about consistency of names and how you name things. That's important because when you name things like form concrete, you can just go to F and you can find form concrete. So it's very important however you name it, it's consistent. Remember, verb, noun, right? So form concrete. And that much pretty much covers all the predecessors.